Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. Happy Wednesday live right here again on YouTube. And then after the show on your favorite podcast platforms, I am Adam Weinrib, joined as I am every Wednesday live on this show by Fansided MLB Insider Robert Murray. Again, it's the offseason. It's the winter meetings next week. It's all that good stuff. You will see us Monday. You'll see us Wednesday. You'll see us Friday. And in this instance, we're here live one day ahead of Robert's Q&A in the Discord, so you can catch us there tomorrow. If you are a Discord member, welcome to the show. We'll see you in the Discord. If you're not, hit that join button below. Come find us. We can answer your questions tomorrow and between shows. Plenty of fun chatter in there today. Between Monday's show and today, Devin Williams moved. Kyle Schwarber seems to be a fast mover, and plenty more news and rumors to react to, plus your questions and more. Robert, shall we do this? Welcome to the show.
No, let's do this. First of all, it was nice of a plane to fly over my head here in Scottsdale, and Cooper's now kissing my hand, so it's a strong start to the show. But we have already had some news today, which is always a pretty exciting thing. As you'd expect, I broke that from the gym, being continuing my streak of breaking news from the gym, so that's always nice. But we have so much more to talk about. We have things heating up around the league. We are a few days away from the winter meetings, which means I'm not going to get very much sleep. So get ready for a very sleep-deprived Robert Murray coming up here within, next 4, 5, 6, 7 days, somewhere in that ballpark. But I'm anxious to dive into ball now. Good to be here with you, Adam. Happy hump day. How's it going? How's everyone doing?
It's going good. Everyone here is doing well. Hunkered down. Appreciate the comments on my haircut, but I got to say, there's like one long strand that I think they cut on the wrong side of the part. And honestly, depending on the time of day, it doesn't look great. Thank you for saying it's handsome. There's a chance I go back to the salon, folks. Don't want to put them on blast here on the Baseball Insiders. Yes, I said salon, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about plenty of players who've already changed hands, rumors, and I do want to go to the comments early because you mentioned we broke Anthony K today, and by we, I mean you. I was not involved, but the podcast is an Anthony K fan show, and a White Sox fan wants to know how you should feel about the Anthony K signing. Is it the biggest move they are going to make? I guess that context is important, but the White Sox have already found success with these KBO arms. K was dominant the last couple of years, and rumor has it he turned down more money in Japan to come back to America and test the waters with the White Sox.
Yeah, K is somebody who I interviewed before he ended up becoming a free agent here, and he is someone who drew quite a bit of interest early on into free agency here. But the White Sox ended up really becoming aggressive early on in his market. And it's very similar to kind of an Eric Fedde situation where they identified him coming back from overseas as a guy who had a lot of upside. And ultimately, they ended up getting it done here. He's got a really strong pedigree overall if you look at him. He's a former first-round pick of the Mets. He obviously played for the Blue Jays, among other teams as well. I don't mind the signing whatsoever for the White Sox because they're in a position here where they can take these kind of shots. And $6 million per season, I mean, overall is not a bad gamble by any means of the imagination. And we've seen some international guys come off the board, or at least guys who are coming back to Major League Baseball come off the board. K is the latest one. All eyes to me are now on Foster Griffin. I don't necessarily know exactly how close he is, but I do know he's drawing quite a bit of interest here. But K was a really nice signing by the White Sox, and low risk, pretty high reward. And ultimately, Chris Guts makes his first move of the offseason, and I like it.
First and probably not last, I'm just going to click and add some comments to the bottom of the stream. I'm not going to acknowledge them, but I am going to put them on the screen. Some of you are here apparently to just, hey, look, you want to hang out after the stream? Happy to talk about this. Don't worry about it. I'm down to be styled. I believe I've made that perfectly clear. But while we're here, I think we should be answering a few of your baseball-related questions, as many as we can get to, plus talking about the moves that have already occurred. Cody Ponce in the comments, that did drop. That was the most recent before Anthony K. So let's go Ponce because, what are your thoughts on Cody Ponce? What does it mean for Berrios? What's next for the Jays? I just think it's notable, and I got a little pushback on this, but look, this is not a bad thing to say. This is nothing but a compliment. The Jays had a full rotation before signing Cody Ponce. They also had depth. They had major league depth like Bowden Francis and Eric Lauer, and they decided, no, we're going to spend $30 million on Cody Ponce anyway, which again, like the Dylan Cease deal, to me is saying this KBO MVP. There's a lot to believe in here. The stuff has ticked up, and we know we need more than just a 5-man rotation, more than just a 6-man rotation to survive a big league season. I tweeted that it's kind of notable that they filled their rotation and they just keep filling it. That was intended to be a shot at teams like the Yankees that are kind of dancing around. Garrett Cole will be back. Carlos Rodon will be back. We like Will Warren. We like Luis Heel. You're going to want 7 dudes who you can trust. And the Blue Jays are showing we have enough money that we do not care. We're going to get Cease. We're going to pay him a little more than you thought we would. We're going to get Ponce. We're going to pay him market value. We're not out on Tucker. We're not out on Bo Bichette. Like, this is what teams with real money do. They fill holes. They go beyond filling the holes. They keep spending to reinforce their championship pedigree. So I'm surprised he ended up there just because I thought a team like the Giants maybe looking to restrict themselves to mid-tier starting pitchers. Maybe they would go with Cody Ponce. Maybe that's where the Giants would be shopping, like $10 million a year, but you never know. The upside is tremendous. But instead, it's a team that already has a full rotation and is just looking to continue reinforcing.
Yeah, and as far as Ponce goes, it's one where I've talked to people around the league who are either like love the deal for the Blue Jays or they thought it was a bit of an overpay. But either way, this is something that the Blue Jays thought was necessary. And even after signing Dylan Cease, I talked to numerous people around the game here who said that they were probably going to add another starting pitcher. I thought it might end up being Michael King. I don't know if they're still in the game for that one necessarily, but he was another player that they ended up talking to, but it ended up being Ponce instead. $30 million there for the Jays, and they've really made it a priority here to invest into that roster, especially the rotation. And they are by far, they're not even close to done yet. As far as the Jays go, I would look at the bullpen being a priority for them. I wrote something on Fansided the other day where I said that I thought 2 really good fits for them would be Pete Fairbanks and also Brad Keller. And Fairbanks, he's drawing a really good amount of interest right now. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was the next reliever off the board. But as far as Keller goes, there hasn't been necessarily that much buzz about him this offseason yet. But if you look at him, he is coming off of a tremendous season with the Cubs. He had an ERA a little bit above 2, I believe 68 appearances. He was signed to a minor league deal by the Cubs, which was a tremendous value for them overall. And this offseason, he's going to end up faring a lot better. And there's going to be plenty of other teams in the mix for Keller. One that I think would be interesting here, and this is just me dot connecting, but look at the Detroit Tigers. Ryan Helsley said that they were very aggressively in on Helsley, the Tigers I'm talking about, and they wanted him to be a starting pitcher. Keller this offseason is drawing interest as both reliever and as a starter. So I wonder if the Tigers could have a similar kind of thing in mind for Keller. So we'll see. But that's something that I'm thinking about there. But also going back to the Jays here, they are a team who obviously they're still going to be connected to Bo Bichette. They're going to be connected to Kyle Tucker. I gotta imagine they'll probably just get one, or like if they get one, it won't be both. Like it's either one or the other kind of situation here. But the Jays are clear that they have money to spend. They're spending it already. They've been the most aggressive team so far this offseason. And just because they signed Cease and Ponce does not mean that they're done.
One of my favorite things about the way the baseball offseason works and the way year over year works when you're just looking back on where you were is when a guy like Brad Keller emerges from complete obscurity and becomes not just a commodity, but a top of market relief commodity. He was on the White Sox and Red Sox in 2024. His most recent data before going to the Cubs that offseason was a 5.84 ERA and 24 2/3 innings with the Red Sox and 19 Ks. And he becomes arguably the best reliever in a playoff-bound Cubs bullpen. Now he may convert back to a starter the way he was in Kansas City. Numerous teams will be chasing him. Tigers are an interesting fit. I like the dots. Plenty more relievers for him to compete with in the market as well. But the top of the market is still there. Suarez and Edwin Díaz still available. And they're going to be the crux of this conversation for sure. But the middle tier of relievers, 15 million AAV or so, starting to come off the board. People are a little split on whether you could call Devin Williams to the Mets 3 years, 50 mil. Is that a bargain for a pitcher like Devin Williams? Is that somewhat of a surprise given the surface numbers of last season with the Yankees? I would say it didn't surprise many. But I would also note that his best work last year was done after he was converted to a setup man. And after they sort of chose his lanes very carefully down the stretch to allow him to rebuild value and confidence, and it worked. It was great in September, great in the postseason. But the Mets are signing on to yet another former Yankee, knowing David Stearns, leading that charge, knowing exactly what they're getting, knowing that the Ks didn't change last year, knowing that Devin Williams' changeup still one of the most effective pitches in baseball, and knowing the man, most importantly, and the heart and what he brings. Nobody knows him better probably than David Stearns. So he goes to the Mets coming off a year where he did his best work as a setup man in the same city, which makes you wonder, the Mets are investing this much money. How much further would they go in the bullpen? Would they bring Edwin Díaz aboard? Would they keep him in the role he found comfort in late last year? Were you surprised to see Williams go to the Mets and not the Dodgers? And then how much further does this go in terms of Steve Cohen spending to rebuild that bullpen infrastructure?
Yeah, well, I just gave away part of my answer with my
Yeah,
head
there's a very clear nod no.
Yeah, I was not surprised whatsoever that Williams was going to the Mets there. And throughout that entire day, like, there was indication that it was imminent and that it appeared headed to the Mets or maybe even the Dodgers. Like, who knows? But the Mets seemed like the clear favorite there. And Will Salmon of The Athletic, who ended up breaking the story, which good job by Will. He said that there was another team who made a late push to try to sign Williams, but the Mets ended up prevailing in the end and getting him. And it's a fit that makes a ton of sense here. And the Mets, their priorities this offseason are to improve their pitching. Well, actually, their priority is to improve their run prevention unit. And this goes hand in hand with that. And we've seen them get Marcus Semien, who's very good defensively. And you also see them get Williams, who is one of the best relievers when he's going right here. So this is exactly what Stearns had in mind here. And it does not take them away from Edwin Díaz whatsoever. Like, Díaz is still in play. As soon as the Williams signing happened, the Mets made it clear that Díaz was still in play, that they wanted to bring him back. There are going to be other teams in the market for his services for sure. Like, this is not going to be a case where it's like a guarantee that he goes to the Mets. There will be other teams involved, probably big market teams. So it's not going to be easy for Stearns and company to bring him back to Queens, but I agree with you wholeheartedly here. Having Williams as a setup man and then handing the ball to Díaz would be a really ideal scenario for them. They're trying for it, but as of this point, there's been no deal done.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would be the only way to go. I'm just saying it would definitely be the way I was most comfortable investing multiple years in Devin Williams after what I saw last year. We all know the peripherals are still there, but I do think reliever ERA is volatile. 1 year it's hard to say it's predictive to the next, but last year there were a lot of big games. Williams was given the ball in with a 1-run lead, and then the fastball command was not there. And as Mike Petriello pointed out, it was not Yankee Stadium versus road environments where he was super comfortable in road ballparks and struggled in the Bronx. He was much better at Yankee Stadium by like two runs on the ERA. It's like 3.63 to like 5.5. So an odd year for Devin Williams, and there are some demons to exercise there. I don't think you could just look at the peripherals and say, "Oh yeah, he'll be great next year" automatically. I think it's going to take some work, but I think David Stearns knows that, and I would say pairing him with Edwin Díaz probably the best way to ensure that no matter what happens, you're probably taken care of. Now, who else might be in on Díaz? I know we're thinking about $100 million plus deal here. Like, who can get in the way of the Mets being able to pull off this super bullpen?
Yeah, so this is, again, going back to the dot connecting phrase, but you always got to look at the Dodgers here. And we saw they ended up investing pretty heavily into the bullpen last year, and obviously it did not work out. My thought is it probably more likely that the Dodgers try to do like a big 1-year deal if they end up going big for a reliever. But Diaz might be a special case where whatever team tries to get involved and tries to get a deal done. But I would look at them. I mean, you could even think, I've seen the Blue Jays connected by John Heyman. There's been, just a bunch of other big market teams that you have to keep in mind here for a guy like Diaz. But I'm sure there's other suitors here as well, because a reliever that talented, he's obviously going to have a big market. But also $100 million for a closer, it's a lot of dough. There's not many teams who can do that. Yeah,
big market, but if that's the market, then maybe slightly smaller market. Not smaller market team, but the market got a little bit smaller. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. You phrased it perfectly. You're doing the Lord's work over there.
That was the best podcast sentence that anyone's ever spoken on a podcast. So it's in the Hall of Fame, and now we move on. Speaking of moving quickly, maybe we weren't actually speaking about that. We were speaking about moving on. But again, another sentence for the Hall of Fame. Terrible transition. Kyle Schwarber is someone that we've kept our eyes on in recent shows, and the winter meetings are next week. Sunday night, people are arriving Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's all going to go down. Probably front loaded in that week, because I know people like to get business done, and then they like to, maybe someone left a couple hours earlier than you're expecting, and you're like, oh, never mind, I guess the winter meetings are over. But Kyle Schwarber is someone that you pointed out wants to get this settled, and the market is still, I think, the teams that we're expecting to see in the Phillies, the Red Sox primarily. There have been some fun Mets rumors floated, like a hey, Alonso goes there, Schwarber goes back. There's been a little swap talked about, but do you still expect he moves quickly, and who do you expect to be involved?
Yeah, there's still, I wouldn't say there's a timeline yet for Schwarber. This is one that I would call it fluid. And with him, there's a lot of interest. And I made this comment to somebody last night that I can't remember a free agent who's like more universally loved than Kyle Schwarber. Like everything about him. Like we've seen Bryce Harper even say that he can't imagine him not being in Philadelphia long term there, or just in general. And let's go through it team by team here. And this is kind of a preview of what I'm writing for Fansided today. So you guys are getting an exclusive here. But I'll start with the Phillies here. And the Phillies had an opportunity to sign Schwarber to an extension before the season started this year, and ultimately did not get anything done. And he ended up having the best season of his career, where he had 56 homers and just catapulted himself into a different level, like into the MVP conversation. And his contract price went up a lot because of it. And one thing we've gotten to learn from John Middleton or even Dave Dombrowski there in Philadelphia is they do not like letting their stars go away. They obviously have a different scenario here now with Schwarber, with Real Muto, with Ranger Suarez, with some of these other guys too. They can't keep everybody, but Schwarber should be the priority there. I have a hard time seeing him leave, but also like they let him test the market. Now he's able to talk to 29 other teams. Like anything is possible here. So we'll see. The Red Sox. This is one that I mentioned at the GM meetings that people were talking about it around the league as a team maybe to watch here. I still feel that way. Like Schwarber is a great fit in Boston. Having him play year-round in Fenway would be incredible. He's got deep ties to the organization. I believe Cora was his manager there when he was with Boston after the trade with the Nationals, so he's got familiarity there as well. I still think that's a really good fit there for Boston and for Schwarber. So I think that's one to watch. That's definitely one that I would like if as a baseball fan, I would like to see Schwarber play in Boston. I feel like that'd be a really cool thing. Let's go to the Cincinnati Reds now too, because we've seen Ken Rosenthal mention him today and John Heyman mention it as well. Like the Reds are indeed interested in Kyle Schwarber. Like he's a homegrown player. He's grew up about 32 miles away from Cincinnati, and he's someone that I think wouldn't mind playing in Cincinnati. Obviously, the Reds are interested in him, but do they have the payroll space to do this? They have what Nick Krall said he has, or their payroll is going to probably remain the same this season as it was last season, which would give them about $20 million to spend. And my thinking is Schwarber is going to be well above $20 million a year. So that could make it very tough for them to pull it off. Obviously, you can always get creative there, but I have a hard time seeing the Reds pulling it off unless they pull the rabbit out of their tushy. That's a fun phrase. The Pirates, they have been connected to Schwarber, as we saw Jeff Passan connect them first. I have a very difficult time seeing the Pirates pulling this off, and that's no shot at the Pirates. Like they're definitely in the market to try to improve their roster. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and they're willing to definitely increase payroll this year. But Schwarber, that signing would be incredibly unprecedented for them. I don't know. Do I expect them to be in it? Like, yeah, for sure. But do I expect them to get it or get him? No. The Orioles. This is one that John Heyman's been on. I have a hard time seeing them pull it off. I mean, obviously they have already improved their lineup there with Taylor Ward. But that would be a pretty hefty spend for them. That being said, they have so much young talent on their roster that they definitely could go out and do it. But my feel is that they probably should spend that money on a pitcher rather than a hitter. But I mean, if you're going to spend big on a hitter, you're never going to hear me say no about Kyle Schwarber. I absolutely would love that. So that is my thoughts on 5 teams with Schwarber. So I'm throwing it back to you now, Adam.
Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody weighing in the comments. We touched on the Pirates briefly, but we had a question from Canyon in our Discord for the All-Stars earlier, basically asking if Ben Cherington is operating a little differently with more urgency, knowing that, hey, this might be, nearing the end of the line here. You only get so many chances. And the comments did bring up a trade fit that I know was mentioned in a column this week about the Pirates looking at Brandon Lau. And the Pirates have connected to a ton of trades for lefty bats, Alec Burleson or signings, Ryan O'Hearn, Brendan Donovan. Jeff McNeil has been floated in the Pirates verse. So it really seems like that's their focus. Thoughts on Cherington's, how he's expanding this budget and how he's using the trade market so far this offseason?
Yeah, they are definitely in the market more. Like they're talking about way more meaningful names than they have been in years past, and it's incredibly refreshing for them to do so. And the number one thing I've heard from Pirates fans is like, yeah, talk is cheap. Like let's prove it. And I totally agree. Like if you're gonna talk as big as you've been, you got to go out and prove it. Do I expect them to do that? Like I do. I genuinely do. And like I think Cherington and everyone with that team has been sincere about that. And I think they end up doing something. Like, again, do I expect it to be Schwarber? No. But like if it's a Brandon Lau or is it a Jeff McNeil? Is it a Ryan O'Hearn or whoever else could it be? I think they go out and do it for sure. And it's I want to say like be patient, but obviously like patience is thin with Pirates fans, and I get it totally, but I do expect them to make a move or two that like meaningfully upgrades their offense.
And one final thing before we sign off, we've got tons of Angels fans in the comments. Want to give them some love. So Alec Manoah yesterday, that does not scratch their itch. Any other rumors floating around on what the Angels could be up to?
Yeah, as far as Manoah goes, like that's a low risk, potential high reward situation there. He was a former All-Star a couple years ago or a few years ago.
Cy Young finalist.
Yeah, like that's a really nice lottery ticket to take, and I have no issue with them doing that whatsoever there. But this by no means ends their pursuit for more pitching, and I think that does not come as any surprise for anyone who has followed the Angels. Like they will be looking for pitching in the rotation, especially. That being said, though, like I remember I would talk to Perry at the GM meetings, and I asked him like, what are you looking for this offseason? And he gave me the famous answer is, well, we could use infield, we could use outfield, we could use rotation, bullpen, like you name it. Like he was keeping all options open, which is typically what he does. So I expect the Angels to make moves for sure, but to what level, we'll see. But the Anthony Rendon situation is definitely one that could have an impact on things.
It helps. Well, yeah, we got asked earlier if we're going to be at the winter meetings next week. Robert will be. I'll be holding it down from here. We'll be doing plenty of shows. So no better time to get on the feed, get subscribed, turn your alerts on, and know when we're going live. It could be unpredictable next week, but we're going to help cover all the news and rumors for you. For Robert Murray, I am Adam Weinrib. Take care, everybody, and we will see you. I won't be here on Friday. Robert will be. Until then, take care.
Thank you, everybody.